Hello, everyone. This is my OWCS major update, upper bracket update. We have, of course, the copy and paste version from the official OWCS, and then my crappy consolation bracket down here. We're going to work through this, and I'll just give you what I think of each matchup here. Important thing to keep in mind is that I don't think we will be having many sweeps at all due to the map selection coming from the Asia region, where the loser not only gets to pick the map, but they also get to pick the mode, so anything goes, and then also the first map being completely random. Nobody gets to decide that, so it'll be interesting. We'll start off this first quarterfinal match of SSG and Students of the Game. I mean, SSG looks like an absolute powerhouse through all of EMEA, and Students of the Game, I think, are just lucky to be here. They do have roster additions coming up for the Face It League in Kaluge and Tree, and that makes their team look significantly stronger. But I don't see the caliber of Students of the Game hanging around with SSG very tightly at all here. I'm gonna go 3-0. 3-0. I just said there wasn't going to be many sweeps, but I do think this one is going to be a sweep. Students of the Game, I do believe, is the weakest, if not the second weakest team in the major, and SSG looks like a very, very strong team to me. Moving on to our other EMEA team ENTS versus Team Falcons. Now, we all know Team Falcons, just a killer roster made up of all of the best Korean talent you could possibly think of. But I have been hearing that they have been struggling in scrims against these teams, especially the EMEA teams. And Team ENTS has been outperforming SSG fairly consistently in the scrims. As much of a shocker as this is going to be to people, I do think this is a 3-1 win for Team ENTS. Now, are they fairly limited by their tank player Vestola being primarily a Sigma player? Yes. Does Team Falcons run dive all the time because they have Smurf? Yes. But if they've been scrimming, and I know that Vestola's good, and Team Finland beat Team Korea in the World Cup, and I it may be crazy. I might take it back. It may be crazy. I'm saying 3-1 for ENTS there. Crazy Raccoons and M80 in the third match here. M80 looks a lot better with the additions of Happy and getting everybody back on no ping. But Crazy Raccoons is, taking it to Team Falcons and looks like by far and away the strongest team in the Korean region. And I don't think that M80 really holds up in this. I'm going to say it's a 3-1 scoreline there. And just, I'm thinking M80 gets a map that they've really practiced, really rehearsed, and they pick it, and Crazy Raccoons isn't really expecting that, or, Lip has an off game, or somebody has an off game there, and I think that goes 3-1. And then Toronto Defiant versus Twisted Minds. Toronto Defiant, by far and away the best team, losing one match in the NA region to M80 in the upper bracket final, and then going on and beating them back in the grand final. Toronto Defiant, very strong team. I think that they're going to be pretty disappointed without a fairly good finish here. And then Twisted Minds, on the other hand, they've been on the struggle bus in the major because they are unable to play with their tank that left them, KSAA, and they have Labda on tank, who is not a tank player. And I think that's really going to show. Really going to show in this scoreline. I predict a 3-0 here for Toronto Defiant. And and I think Twisted Minds is really not focused on this major. They're happy to be here, much a kind of students of the game, but they're very much so focused on the Face It League. I think Twisted Minds knows that without a dedicated tank player, you're playing against, the top 7 teams, top 8 teams that are supposed to be in the OWCS, and your tank player left you. That's putting you in a very difficult spot. So we come back down here to the lower bracket, and we have students of the game here, and then Falcons, and M80, and Twisted Minds. Now, for this, I think students of the game and Falcons, I think that the Falcons are going to be shocked that they got beat by Ents. They're going to take this as kind of a revenge tour. If you remember the old San Francisco Shock revenge tours that they would go on whenever they would lose matches, I think that that's absolutely something that's going to happen here. And I predict a 3-0 scoreline there for Falcons, moving Falcons into the next round of the consolation bracket. And I really do think that, students of the game, they got here, and I do predict them losing 0-3, and that's still fine. I mean they're a nice team to watch. They have some personalities on there, and I hope that they take this and they take the players that they're incoming with, and they get back to this position and they do a bit better next time. I do think their roster additions are going to make them much stronger, but I do believe that they, rightfully so, should be just happy to be here in this major tournament. On to M80 and Twisted Minds. Again, Twisted Minds, same old song and dance. No tank player against a pretty strong M80 team who got a tough matchup. First round against Crazy Raccoons. I mean, again, I don't think this is going to be necessarily close. I think this is more or less a walkover of the two weakest teams here in Students of the Game and Twisted Minds. I just don't think those teams are on the same caliber of the rest of the 6 teams here in the major tournament. So then we continue to our semifinal winners bracket match. We have SSG here versus Ents. It's a rematch of what we've just seen, and it's kind of unfortunate that we get these possibilities of inter-region games that we just saw just a couple weeks ago. But I do think that these two teams are very strong, and I have this being an absolute burner of a match, and I have it going 3-2 to Ents, moving them on to the upper bracket finals. And call me crazy, I'm riding that Ents wave. I think if they do beat this Falcons team, which I predict they will, they're going to be riding one heck of a high and be on a great mindset, as opposed to Space Station Gaming, who came off a bit of a snoozer of Students of the Game that I predict, and they might just not be ready for that Ents playstyle. And like I said, Scrimbucks will buy into that a bit. Ents has been doing very well in scrims recently, and I think the team is much more relaxed without Gunba there, and with Crimzo taking over that coaching role, and really lending some new fresh mindsets and fun back to Team Ents. So I do think Team Ents takes the semifinal against SSG in another burner of a match. No match between these two teams is going to be a snoozer, but I do think Ents takes that. And then we go to Crazy Raccoons versus Toronto Defiant. This is an absolute burner of the match. This is I mean, if this goes the way that I predicted, well, this semifinals is going to be just electric to watch. I mean, we will have a banger and a banger back to back. Crazy Raccoons is a very, very strong best Korean team by, I think, Worlds, and then Toronto Defiant, again, best NA team by Worlds. So I mean, you're looking at this and you're tying it together, and I think there's some storylines, there's some revenge on the field of, Lip, and he played for the Atlanta Reign, and they were the 1 seed, and three players on Toronto Defiant played for, your Florida Mayhem, and they ended up winning it all. I think there's some good storylines here. I just don't think that Toronto Defiant has played the competition level that Crazy Raccoons have. I think that the Korean bracket is significantly deeper in competition level, so I think Crazy Raccoons will be ready. I don't think Toronto Defiant, outside of M80, has really faced any challenges, and even that was just one time. I think that Toronto Defiant might not be fully warm for this match, especially facing Twisted Minds. I think that they'll make it a dogfight, but I think Crazy Raccoons takes this, just based on competition level and getting ready for this. I don't think Toronto Defiant has seen anything of the caliber of Crazy Raccoons yet, and I think it'll take them a bit off guard. I think they'll have to prepare for that. So this will lead Space Station Gaming down here to face Falcons, and Toronto Defiant down here to face M80. And again, we could have easily, Blizzard just switched one of these teams, so we didn't have, these possibilities of a European match and then another NA match here. But maybe they will learn that for another time, or maybe I'm completely wrong in my predictions and none of this will happen. But Falcons versus SSG, I think that Falcons are again on a bit of a revenge tour, but Space Station Gaming, after that barn burner of a match with Ents, I think they might be a bit tired, might be a bit fatigued, and Falcons, knowing kind of the EMEA play style and just really studying up on what happened against Ents, I think they will kind of learn to take the EMEA style in stride and kind of work around that and beat that. I have Falcons winning that 3-2 and moving them up in the consolation bracket once again. And then we have M80 versus Toronto Defiant again. And I don't foresee Toronto Defiant making the slips that they made in the upper bracket final. In the NA region, I think they should be very locked in here, especially off the match of Crazy Raccoons. They should be very locked in. They know this is the time to play for it all. I think this is a 3-1 scoreline here with Toronto Defiant. I know that M80 is a good team, but we saw in the past they haven't really matched up Toronto Defiant very well. And I think that Toronto Defiant, when they lost, wasn't, completely locked in. They said that themselves, they didn't think anybody was able to push them in the region. I think that locking in this major tournament, Toronto Defiant, I think that's absolutely something that's going to happen there. And then we have Ents. No, we'll go Falcons and Toronto Defiant, so we can keep going with our lower bracket. Falcons versus Toronto Defiant. I think this is going to be another awesome match. I think that Falcons, facing off against two EMEA style teams and students of the game. I don't know if they're for sure ready for the flexibility of Toronto Defiant. And I think that the Toronto Defiant team, I think they might struggle on the support line against the dive, but I think that the flexibility of their damage players and someone on tank kind of outmatches the Falcons. I see the Falcons as very much so just a dive team. Now, a very good dive team, but just a dive team. So I think Toronto Defiant can make those swaps and make that, almost unplayable against them. So I do have Toronto Defiant in this series, but I do think it will take time for them to figure that out. And I think it'll be a 3-2. I think Falcons, again, very, very strong team, and I think they will be disappointed with this finish, especially losing the first round and then fighting through the upper bracket or lower bracket. But I think that Toronto Defiant is just too flexible of a team, too strong of a team, and they've seen kind of the Korean style and against Crazy Raccoons, and they'll have enough time to study that tape against that. And I think they'll come out and really be locked in for the dive play style. And if Falcons can switch from that, then I think that's their key to victory. If Falcons can keep adjusting to Toronto Defiant swaps, but I just don't see if that's I don't see that being reasonable in my mind. I think Toronto Defiant is just more flexible than the Falcons team, and they'll go on to win that. And then we have Ents versus Crazy Raccoons in the upper bracket final, and I just I just think that Crazy Raccoons is an all around better team. I think that Ents has they have a lot of great players, and it'll be an awesome matchup against Kevster and Lip. It'll be an awesome matchup against everyone across the board. And I just think that this is where Ents has escaped Team Falcons using the playstyle, and they've escaped SSG using their almost exclusive Sigma playstyle, which I'll think is happening. I think the Crazy Raccoons are just too good to fall for it, and seeing it happen to everybody else and still falling for it. So I personally don't think this is going to be super competitive. I think this is going to be a 3-1 matchup. Not saying that's not competitive, but in the map pick system that we see, 3-1, I don't think it's gonna be a crazy sweat for Crazy Raccoons. And I see them kind of cruising through the upper bracket and into the grand final here, and that leaves Team Ents down here in the lower bracket final against Toronto Defiant. And again, same story. I think that Toronto Defiant it would be disappointing for them to get third place here in their team. And again, the flexibility I think is just a huge advantage to Toronto Defiant. I do I do think this will go Toronto Defiant's way of 3-2. I think Ents will have a really good run. Um, their damage duo is world class. Their support duo is world class. Even with Ghost, I'll be interested to see how he performs as a first time on stage guy. Um, but I mean the history of this roster, the confidence of this roster, um, and the skill on the composition that they're just hard running. I think I think a third place finish for them isn't disappointing. Obviously, everybody wants to win, but you know I think that's a very good placement for the team that they have, and that faces off Crazy Raccoons and Toronto Defiant again in the grand final, and my prediction of it being a close match in the semifinal, and then I think that I credit the NA coaching staff and the Toronto Defiant coaching staff more than I do the Crazy Raccoons coaching staff, and I value the Crazy Raccoons players a bit more than the Toronto Defiant players. But I think that this is where kind of studying the tape and the coaching and Kosaurus being that guy who's getting paid strictly to coach this team, and everybody's all in on the coaching style, and they've had great coaching before all of them. I think that Toronto Defiant squeaks this out in a 4-3 final. And I do think it's going to be an absolute nail biter. It's going to be an absolute barn burner. I think this is going to be an absolutely electric tournament for everyone who's watching it. But I think that in the final, the coaching difference is really going to happen, and the experience down here with Falcons and studying the tape from Crazy Raccoons here, I think that's going to give just the slightest edge. I mean, the slightest edge to Toronto Defiant, and I think that Toronto Defiant will win it all. And I think that's what the Toronto Defiant organization, that's what everybody there is all in for. But I do think it's going to be a disappointment to Crazy Raccoons and Team Falcons, and I do think that this will be a bit of a wake up call to the Overwatch world of, you know, the Korean talent isn't, you know, an automatic walkthrough. They don't get to just win everything. Um, I think showing Team Falcons losing, if they lose to Team Ents like I predict, I think it'll be a huge wake up call for everybody that the rest of EMEA and NA is on par with this Korean standard. Again, not as deep, but the top end it's very close now. Overwatch is not as Korean dominated as, you know, the top end as people want to believe. But yeah, I have Toronto Defiant winning it all, and call me biased if you want, due to my love for the Florida Mayhem, but I do think that they're a very strong team. They get organized first. They've had the most practice together, and a fantastic full time coaching staff. So I mean, I do think that this is absolutely my my completed bracket. Let me know in the comments if you agree.